Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode. Welcome to episode 44. We are talking about apologizing in marriage in this episode. The reason that we're talking about this is because just last week we had an issue that we had to talk through and apologize to each other about, and it ended up turning into this episode. So we have a personal story around this one that we'll fill you in on and will help make sense of why we're talking about this week.
Yeah, I guess it was just last week when we were recording or prepping to record the podcast, which was on personal stress, but I had typed some notes, some thoughts that I had, and so then Thomas was reading those, and he was reading them out loud to make sure we were on the same page before hitting record. And I just started doing stuff on my phone, just messing around, being distracted, and Thomas asked me a question, but I didn't respond. So that's not good. I was completely distracted that I didn't really realize he was talking to me and not just reading out loud. And with me not responding, Thomas left the room. And I think he went to get water, right? He went to get water,
Yes.
But I thought he was mad at me. And so when he came back, he was expecting an apology from me because I was distracted, not paying attention to what we had decided to discuss that night and record the podcast on. But I was honestly just oblivious to what I needed to apologize for. Obviously I was distracted. I didn't know what I had done. I don't know what I needed to apologize for. But there was tension. I could feel that. But I then now wanted him to apologize for walking away from me.
Which is exactly why we are recording an episode about apologizing in marriage tonight. And in fact, last week when this all happened, I thought about in the moment suggesting that we pivot from talking about personal stress and going ahead and talking about apologizing. But I, in that moment, also realized I was a smarter man than that, and that would have just turned into a much bigger fight. So postponing it one week was totally fine.
We probably wouldn't have had a episode release, or it would have caused more personal stress. But yeah, I could just again feel that I had done something wrong, but I needed Thomas to actually speak up and bring it to my attention to tell me what I had done to upset him, instead of walking away. That's right. How I saw it.
Well, and in all fairness, I did walk away in a passive-aggressive manner. I did actually go get water, but it was very passive-aggressive walking away because I wanted to go get water and I wanted to get your attention.
Right.
And so
Which
I knew
did.
that walking away would get your attention. So when I came back, I did explain why I walked away because you weren't acknowledging the question that I had. And what I needed from you was I needed you to pause and apologize and acknowledge that you had done something to upset me.
Yeah, so after you explained what was wrong and what I did, I just moved on like, okay, cool, thanks for letting me know.
Good talk.
Which
cool
upset
story, bro.
you more. Just like, oh, I was on my phone when you asked a question. Okay, I didn't realize that. But I didn't say I'm sorry. I just, I was mad that you just walked away. And so like that made me mad. But through that, it just took everything in me to realize I needed to apologize. Like, guys, I don't apologize. It's horrible. Like, luckily afterwards, when we were good with each other, I said that. I'm like, why am I so bad at apologizing? Because I did when you told me, finally, because I was like, well, just stop walking away. Tell me what I did wrong, because I obviously have upset you, but I don't know what I did. I'm that oblivious, and I'll admit that. But then when he did, and I was like, oh, okay, weird. Sorry. I didn't say sorry. I was
No,
just
you
like,
didn't say sorry.
Thanks.
In fact, in our notes here, you have it written out that you quote, "I'm sorry that I was on my phone and not paying attention, and will you please forgive me?" Like you were going to say that tonight, and you still didn't even say it in this podcast.
I was trying to say it took everything in me to say this because, I mean, I eventually did, but
I know, but I'm just pointing out that you still, like, you couldn't even read it.
It's really, really hard to apologize. Why am I like this? I didn't realize that.
Oh, I love you.
Yeah, but again, as I did muster the courage and acknowledged it finally, and did say that what I just wrote out. I'm sorry that I was on my phone and not paying attention. Will you please forgive me? And you did. You quickly forgive. That's a big trait of yours. So Thomas quickly forgave me, and then he apologized too, because once I said sorry and acknowledged what I had done, your walls came down, and you acknowledged what you had done with walking out of the room and how that made me feel. And then we were good, but I'm just not good at apologizing.
Yeah, so we learned a lot from that situation last week, which prompted us to start doing this episode. And in preparation for this episode, we've talked a lot about the 5 love languages throughout the course of these 44 episodes. And so we actually found that 5 love languages has an apology languages quiz on their website. It's totally free. And so we decided this will be fun.
This is a good week to take that quiz. We knew about it.
Yeah, we knew about it.
It took this little issue, this situation,
this whole entire episode for us to actually want to dive into taking this quiz.
Yeah, it was pretty enlightening. It was kind of fun.
It really was. I mean, it took 2 or 3 minutes to
Yeah.
actually go through all the questions on the quiz. So it doesn't take very long. So I would encourage all of you listening to do it just to know where you're at, because it's not necessarily just about with your spouse, because a lot of the questions, the way they're formatted, it can be about workplace issues or other things, other areas of your life. So it's not just specifically about your spouse. So it could be enlightening for you to understand, like, if something else happens outside of your marriage, why you don't feel resolved from something. And it might just be because it didn't hit your apology language. So anyway, so let's talk about our apology languages. There are 5 love languages, so naturally there are 5 apology languages, of course. So my 5 in order are accept responsibility at 27%, and then expressing regret and requesting forgiveness, both at 23%, and then make restitution 19%, and planned change at 8%. So as you can see, my number 1 is accept responsibility.
Which now I know is why it was so important for me to accept my responsibility for being on my phone and being distracted from you talking to me and engaging in conversation. So yeah, I wasn't aware. And then even when you brought that to my attention, I didn't accept responsibility, and now I know that is your number 1. I was like, oh, okay, that's something now I can understand why, even though it's so far from my personality, but I know that means a lot to you, and that's something that I now want to work on. Because ironically, accept responsibility is my lowest of this on my my score at 12%. So
technically it's tied for your lowest,
yeah,
but it's actually at the bottom.
It put it at the bottom. So my 5 was expressing regret, was my highest apology language at 32%.
And this is why it mattered to Julie that I apologized for walking out of the room during an intense time.
It kind of, because it's talking about more emotional feelings and stuff. So expressing regret, just so you can hear him again. Then I had plan change at 24%. Like, what are you going to do about it and change? Make restitution 20%. And then, yeah, request forgiveness and accept responsibility are my lowest at 12%. And I would say that's something, I thought Thomas was going to score the highest at requesting forgiveness, because even the words, I'm sorry, will you forgive me, means a lot to you. And that's why, like, it does not come naturally to me. And a lot of times hearing those words back to me, if someone just says, I'm sorry, they don't mean as much. I'm like, okay, just lip service, you know. I need them to express that regret and remorse. We're going through this with our 8-year-old son, honestly. If I could just tell a parenting story, like, he's really quick to and I can say that, and then you don't know which one I'm talking about if they ever listen back when they're older, because they're twins. So I can be like, my 8-year-old son, one of them, he's going through this stage, I guess, where when he does something wrong and we bring it to his attention, he's really, really quick to say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And I've had to say, buddy, you're just saying the words to not get in trouble. And that doesn't work for me. Like, you need to stop and listen to what I'm saying. But there's other times that when I'm, talking, and he just has this different look on his face, and he can almost like start to cry, and I can see that he feels bad. I'm like, oh, I forgive you, without him even saying I'm sorry. So that's how I feel forgiveness.
Yeah, well, I mean, expressing regret is number 2 for me and number 1 for you. And that's like the aspect of feeling sorrowful for like a true apology coming from the heart, saying, like, I know that I've done something, and really, being able to portray that, and actually genuinely feeling apologetic for it. And that's why I think, for you, it's, feel the apology, but then tell me what you're going to do to change. And for me, it's, you thought forgiveness was going to be high, but I already know I'm going to forgive you. So that's not the highest thing for me, but it's like, no, accept responsibility and actually truly apologize. When you said a minute ago, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? I'm like, I only care about the first 2 words. I'm sorry. Like, I'm already going to forgive you. I already know that. So that's why it falls a little lower for me than where you thought it would be.
Yeah.
But, so we encourage you guys to go check out this apology quiz. I think it's great. Just search 5 love languages and click on their quizzes tab, and you can.
I think we have that on our website, marriagepuzzle.com. Anyway, because we have the 5 love languages book there. But yeah, that was kind of fun, because obviously we're still working on forgiveness and apologizing here in our marriage at over 15 and a half years, and we know people struggle with this in every relationship, like you said, even in the workplace and stuff. And so through our marriage coaching, we've also learned 6 parts to seeking forgiveness. So it's because the words "I'm sorry" have different weights to different people, like we just went through in the apology language quiz. Notice it's not just saying I'm sorry to move on. There's so much more that should come first, so that apology can be sincere and it can be received from the other person.
Yeah.
So 6 parts to seeking forgiveness. Number 1 is to try to understand the pain you have caused.
Number 2 is admit what you did was wrong or hurtful.
3, take responsibility for your action for resolution.
4, assure your spouse or the other person, if it's in the workplace or something like that, assure your spouse you will not do it again.
5 is apologize and ask for forgiveness.
And 6, forgive yourself so that you can move on. I just want to make sure that, we talk about this for a second, because sometimes when we put these steps or these tips or things out there, it can seem like you have to move from one to the next. But in this situation, this is really a collective thing that all of these kind of have to happen simultaneously, so to speak. Your apology is going to encompass like all of these parts at the same time, or it should at least encompass most of them to get you through. It should sound something along the lines of, is this what I did to hurt you? Like, trying to understand, I'm so sorry that I did that. I know that wasn't right, and I know that hurt you. I'm definitely going to work on that and try to get better at that. Will you please forgive me? That kind of takes care of everything, all of those steps there, with the exception of forgiving yourself, because you then have to do that separately on your own.
But that's so you can move on. I love that. 6 says, forgive yourself so you can move on. Because, and then obviously forgiving the other person too, because this fight was last week. And then we had to remember, we're like, wait, we want to talk about that, but we did move on. And then we had to remember and kind of laugh about it now. But if we hadn't moved on, we could have still been holding that against each other going into recording this week and been like so afraid that it was going to happen again, or, you know, that I wouldn't pay attention to you, or that you would walk out of the room for me. And that's just another fight waiting to happen. So apologize and ask for forgiveness, then forgive yourself so you can move on.
Right.
And try it this week, because I know you might need to try it tomorrow or the day you're listening to this episode, because that's our life, but that's why we love to learn and grow each and every day, and then grow closer together in our marriage. But try it and then let us know how it goes. DM us on social media at Facebook or Instagram, which is @MarriagePuzzle, if you're not already following along. Or if you prefer to email or contact us there, you can check us out at marriagepuzzle.com. And as always, we look forward to you joining us next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
Have a good one.